Yeah. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here for our solid waste task force meeting number 3 of 4. So we're just to kind of recap, from kind of where we've started. Our goal is to provide some recommendations to the city manager, which will then be shared with the city council kind of on August 4th, about how city pays for its kind of solid waste recycling and compost services, along with any other kind of policy changes that the group would recommend, lining up with the solid waste management plan that was adopted in 2024. So we've been talking about fee structure, senior relief, composting, billing, communications, and then kind of more administratively, what are the code amendments that we need to do. And we're kind of trying to hone in on how we might do these things rather than if. And so, for today, so I think we got the same group of folks here, so appreciate everybody taking the time. So, Gabriella, Diane, and Fred, Lonnie is our solid waste coordinator. Jody and Nikki from the treasurer's office are with us remotely today. Melissa from finance and Mary Catherine from communications. So this is meeting number 3 of 4. We've got our final meeting a week from a week from Monday on July 21st, which the goal will be to kind of get everybody's kind of input on what the final kind of recommendations will be. And then the presentation to city council on city manager's feedback from us will be on August 4th. I think before we kind of get into the meat of the meeting today, we want to see if anybody had any public comments. Lonnie, I'll turn it over to you.
So there are 3 public comments. I will summarize the 3. Ms. Karen Rambo, no address, urges the task force not to take action to implement a fee for solid waste services. The second comment was from Ms. Williams at 311 North Virginia Avenue. Would like to see a fee based on assessed value or square footage. And then the third comment from Mr. Olson, 615 Lincoln, appreciates the task force for taking this on. He loves the idea of the variable fee model. Would like to see the hauler follow the rules of yellow stickers and not to collect bags if no stickers are present. And then you guys have the full comments on the sheet of paper. And I believe there is nobody from the public online.
We have one,
Yep.
at least one kind of here in person today. So Steve, you want to come on up?
Sure. Steve Page, it's 10 Lisa Lane.
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate all of your work on this. I have actually watched some of the videos. 3 minutes, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Steve Page. I want to say up front that I have no expertise in solid waste management or recycling, but I do know about taxes, both from a practical standpoint as a taxpayer and also more complex tax policy concepts such as equity versus efficiency. Here's the bottom line. The recent changes to federal tax law are a significant external factor that must be considered in the economics of this discussion. Specifically, the cap on the deduction for state and local taxes, known as SALT, has been raised to $40,000 starting this year. This is a fact, not a forecast, assumption, or guess. If the city changes waste service funding from primarily property taxes to a service fee model, it would convert a deductible tax into a non-deductible user fee. IRS publication 530 clearly states that these fees are not deductible, even when paid directly to a taxing authority and collected by real estate bills. This is not a minor or technical detail. There is simply no way to move from a deductible to a non-deductible model and make the math work in a neutral fashion. Using an estimated fee of $400 for 3,000 households, there will be roughly $1.2 million of lost tax deductions every year. The combined federal and state marginal rate of 30%, this will result in $360,000 per year additional taxes. I also reviewed the 2024 Waste Management Plan and read comments from multifamily dwelling residents about unfairness. I do not want to dismiss these concerns, but I also saw lots of requests for additional services. I think a better approach to this issue would be enhancing the programs and services offered, especially for the multifamily units. Balancing tax fairness and effectiveness is very, very hard because so many government services are only accessible to limited groups of people. This task force has been focused on creating a highly equitable but also inefficient solution for this one relatively small part of city services. If this happens, questions will be asked about other city services, including ultimately our school's funding levels and services. I suggest this task force listen to our own local expert, City Manager Wyatt Shields, in his statement on the equity issue and the viability of a do-nothing option stated in the October 7th, 2024 work session, beginning at the 29-minute, 15-second mark on the YouTube video. Finally, there are many reports and social media posts about the benefits of multifamily housing to the city, but these endorsements ring hollow. The first direct interaction thousands of households have with this housing policy is literally a bill, a non-deductible one at that. So, respectfully, I urge this task force to use caution when finalizing recommendations and stay as close to the current funding system as possible. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to send written comments in a follow-up email for your records.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, so we'll move on. We've been super efficient with these meetings and we're gonna make it 3 for 3 today. So, so kind of the ground we're hoping to cover today, so we're gonna talk composting. So Lonnie's gonna kind of lead that discussion for us, talk a little bit about what it looks like in the city today. You know, what an organics bin concept would look like. We'll have hopefully Adam Rydell from Collins County join us, and we've got Joel Bushok from American Disposal Services with us here in person, share a little bit about their experiences with this. We'll touch on the yellow sticker program, which Lonnie kind of hit on the public comments. What the program costs kind of all roll up to based on everything we've talked about. Have some legal follow-up on the variable fee. Hopefully Sally Gillette will be able to join us kind of a little bit later in the meeting. But I've got some kind of material to share in the discussion I think we can have on that. And then we'll have a few updates on senior relief billing and communications. Lonnie, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. So this slide is currently what we do in the city today. So we have 2 vendors. We have Compost Crew that collects curbside for an opt-in composting for food waste. And then we also have Compost Crew servicing our drop-off facility in the back. We have about 850 participants that opt into that program to have their food waste collected curbside. So depending on what size bin you have, it can be either an $8 a month or $15 a month out-of-pocket cost for the resident, and then the city subsidizes the rest. And then we also manage the drop-off in the back, and that's free of charge. American Disposal is our hauler for all solid waste. So
Sorry, you have a place people can drop off compost that's free?
yep, it's all the way in the back, 5 or 10 support. American Disposal is our solid waste hauler. So they collect trash, recycling, and yard waste. They collect yard waste and they take it to Conventus, which is in Prince William County. And that service is provided for all current curbside customers. So what do we expect from the organic bin outcome? I mean, obviously, we are trying to meet our objectives, not only with the solid waste management plan, but we're also working with, I'm trying to think of the name of that plan, the comprehensive plan.
Community Energy Action.
Community and that one, sorry, to reduce carbon emission goals. We have, again, roughly about 20% that opt into that program. We've always hovered around that 20%, so we would love to see this program move forward to exceed the 20%. One of the goals is to just to kind of reduce what we send to the waste to energy facility. And then we have some costs here. So the overall cost that we are currently, paying is $170,000 combined. So that's $80,000 that the residents are currently paying, and then $90,000 that the city subsidizes for this program to essentially stand. And then if we were to implement this third organic bin, that would drop us down to $141,000. So a cost saving right there. Sorry. Organic bins concept details. So customers will be provided a new shiny green cart. It's not even gonna be green. We don't know what color it's gonna be. So stay tuned. So the current is the current program provided by Compost Crew will be phased out once this new bin program comes into place. The new organics bin will be used for not only food waste, but for yard waste as well. American Disposal will collect just like they do now. So Compost Crew will eliminate that truck from our roadways, and then it will just be that yard waste truck that is currently going around now. So that reduces the cost because they're already doing it currently, collecting yard waste because it will go to the same facility. We are expecting just seeing decreases over time being sent to the waste energy facility and being sent over to Conventus, the Prince William County composting facility. The tipping fees, so for composting, is $41 versus the $90 that it's going to now cost to take it over to the waste energy facility.
I guess that's a question. So you're saying no more brown bags, you're saying everything going into that compost bin.
Brown bags will still be in place.
So when you say yard waste, grass cuttings,
Grass clippings, well, Joel will get into that
Oh, okay.
on what we can put into that third bin.
Okay.
But over time, that is our hope that
so it'll have to be
more, yeah, so now you have this one dedicated bins, not only for your food waste, but your yard waste can go into that. So over time, that's what we're hoping for, to kind of phase that out a little bit. But being Tree USA, we do have a lot of trees and, in the fall and,
So that'll have to be a pretty big bin then.
so it would essentially, we'll let Joel get into that, but yes, we'll get into that. And then the current drop-off facility will still remain in place for, multi, family buildings, sorry. So this is the slide that we presented last time. So just the fee to add the service is about $95,000. We are estimating an additional $10,000 for just the tipping fees. The organics carts purchase, $36,000. This is going to be essentially stretched out over 5 years, excuse me. So the total cost is $141,000. We're currently already subsidizing that $90,000, so we'll just reallocate it here. So then that will bring the new total cost to $51,000. So that equates to be about $16 a year per home.
So if I can, I was having trouble following this $36,000, if there's 33,000 customers, that's like $10 a piece, which doesn't seem to be enough for a bin. But you're saying this is something you schedule, you'd phase in over multiple years.
5 years.
You wouldn't be providing everybody with this service in year one. It would be.
So the city will essentially take that cost up front, and then we will essentially pay the city back.
They amortize it over 5 years.
Correct.
So you would buy a bin for 3,000 people
Correct.
in year one.
Correct.
And then amortize that cost over 5 years. So you implement 100% of the program
Correct.
in year one. That's why I didn't understand that. Thank you.
And then it says $16 a year for each customer. Is that for each household or like, so a family of 4 is paying 16, a family of 6 is paying 16, a family of 1 is paying 6. Okay.
It's essentially 51,000 divided by the 3,000
Homes.
spot.
Okay, just want to make sure because it said customer and I'm thinking, I'm a customer, my husband's a customer,
Understood. Yeah.
You should
Hey,
have said-
Lonnie.
Ooh, sorry, hello.
Hey, sorry about that. So can you go back to that previous slide? So is the city going to continue to pay the $90,000? Because the $51,000, $16 a year for each household. What about the 90,000?
Yes, that's already quote unquote in the budget. So that number is already baked in to that
Okay.
1.45.
and that will stay in the budget every year. It doesn't have to be revoted on and like,
It's basically like put into the fee.
Yeah.
So the fees we're talking about, that's already accounted for.
so it's accounted for this year. Will it be accounted for? I mean, so next year, is that going to be revoted on? Like, hey, we don't want to give 90,000. We're only going to allocate 75,000 and then our fees go up.
No. So it would be included in the fees we've been talking about,
Okay.
right? So,
So kind of like an enterprise fund. So the money that's collected will go back out.
So the fees replace the subsidy. right? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
The fees replace the subsidy, and they do so for each of the next 5 years through full implementation.
So it's part of the base fee that we looked at, 2 weeks
Okay.
ago already. The 51 is just the incremental increase.
So it'd be 16 additional on top of the 90,000 that's gonna be, I mean, in essence, each household's gonna end up paying more than $16 a year for the organics bin, right? Because it's gonna be the 90 plus the 51?
In theory, yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. That was my question. Thank you.
To note though, it does replace, because the 580 customers right now for the composting bin are paying.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how much it is,
$9.
per person or per customer.
$8 or $15 per customer. So right
Depending
now,
on
they're, yeah, so 80,000.
So those 580 customers are paying out-of-pocket costs
Right.
towards the composting. So this will replace that
Cost.
additional cost that they're currently picking up.
And again, like with your question for the 141,000, what's that amount for everybody? It's around $45 per household.
Okay, so really what we're looking at is people are gonna be, every household is paying $41, not 16.
16 would be the additional over what the program's spending today. So yes, I think that is a way that you can look at it. The total cost of a third bin for the city could look at it as $45 a year. That makes sense to everybody. We're talking about numbers from a couple different angles.
Yeah, and for, I was confused by it, and I'm just, 16 doesn't seem like that much, but when you say it's $45, that's a lot more than 16. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding, and if I'm not understanding and I'm on the committee, what's the average homeowner going to say when they see that and they're like, wait a minute, you said it was 16, but it's actually 45.
Right. I
So,
agree.
I want to make sure we're as
Transparent.
transparent, thank you. I was gonna say transient, I mean, transparent as possible. And this to me is not as transparent as saying, hey, we're also taking on that. So it's $16 plus the other amount.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I can see it that way.
Okay.
Any other questions on this slide?
Well, I've got a broad question. So we have this program that's 50%, roughly 50% subsidized by the city right now. And only 580 people out of 3,000 have opted into it. Why do we believe that 6 times that many people are going to make full use of a far broadly expanded program, I guess, starting January 1st, or, that's pretty soon, that they would make full use of this and that it would still bring value to the city? That's pretty quick implementation.
So we talked about this last meeting, and it's all about the behavior, right? We have to start from the behavioral change. We understand that year 1, we're probably not going to see much. Year 2, we'll see a small increase. Year 3. So it's not something that we're going to see an immediate, just by adding this third bin, the city saved, $200,000 from check fees. We're not going to see that. It's going to take us a very long time to get there. However, incremental steps will always get us there. So it's year 1, we're not going to see it. We'll probably have a little bit less of what we're essentially diverting from what we're currently sending. So we might see a small incremental savings, if you will. But it all starts with that behavior change. So, I mean, Gabby and Diane and I talked about it last time, they have composting in their household and they're not producing much trash because what we can essentially put into this third bin is going to, dryer sheets, dryer lint, tea bags. I mean, the amount of things that can go inside of this bin is just, it's huge. So if you realistically take the time, you change the behavior, and you actually use this third bin as to what we're proposing it to be used for, then I think we will see a quicker change than than expected. Yes.
Yeah, and if I can just comment on that, because I think that's a great question. So in my immediate little parking lot area, there are 4 households that do the compost bin. And I know that I personally, when I signed up for it however many years ago, I had a little bit of a hesitation because it's like $100 a year. I mean, it's not cheap, like it's a, you know. So I know we're talking about $45 a year, but actually that's a lot less than 100, you know? So it's not even $1 a week, right? And I do think we've heard from some commenters previously that folks are really annoyed by the yard waste bags and would love to get rid of those. So I think that being able to just take care of that, except during peak leaf season, probably, you could get most of your stuff out.
Big storms, things. like that.
Yeah, I mean, there'll always be events like that. We'll need to run out and get some bags, but I think taking care of that. And then I also know that there are a number of folks, and again, just using my little neighborhood as an example, who are interested in composting, but just hesitate at the $100 a year. But I think if it's included, it's easy, like you're removing friction for people, make it a little cheaper. I mean, I'm an optimist. I just think some people will start trying it.
Yeah, but one thought I had was maybe, and I understand,
Yeah.
about that maybe, like a third of the city at a time or something that might, because there is an education process here. It's not just like, here's a new bin, put something in it because there's a trash in it. So you got to communicate that and what can go in it and that sort of thing. So there's education process, and you want the take. I mean, the take up hasn't been dramatic yet. It's half subsidized. So I agree when the price comes down, that does make it more attractive. I don't know. You're the experts here. I'm just suggesting that you think about ways to phase it in, that whether there might be a way to do that that's less costly at the front end and brings people along emotionally and in terms of their behavior.
So one of the options on, just communication will be, just outreach in general is going to be a huge lift for this. But one of the things that we're also going to be doing is when the new bins are actually delivered, they will come with marketing material. So it will essentially tell you, hey, this can go in the bin. This is what we're doing it. I mean, it essentially tells you all about the program. So, I mean, that on top of social media, we can do door tags. I mean, we'll definitely get the word out. People will definitely know that this is coming and, what to expect, how it will be implemented, when to expect the bins. I mean, we'll have all of that ironed out way before this even gets implemented. So if there's questions, comments, we can do a Q&A. I mean, sky is the limit.
And the cost for that program should be in there. Should be part of that, what you plan for.
Well, outreach and things of that nature, like social media, that's free. The door tags, I mean, that's a couple $100. That's not too big of a lift for us. And I already have that baked into the solid waste budget. So, I mean, I don't think that we're going to do anything that would cost, a lot of money. I don't foresee us doing like a mailing like I did for when we pulled glass out. That was a pretty big lift. So I just think, I mean, we're only essentially trying to get the word across to current curbside customers. So door tags is one of the easiest ways that we can do that.
Lonnie,
Yes.
it's Nikki. Hi, everyone. I think it's really important, and you've already said this, I'm just reinforcing it. When we put out the messaging, I think it's really important that we clearly state, while this service will add $45 a year to your bill, the potential savings of offsetting the tipping fees in changing the behavior, that's going to be a really important message.
I'd recommend having like even something at the farmer's market where people are showing you what you can compost or not, or having a compost crew per neighborhood that someone who has questions might be able to go to that. Listen.
I mean, just like block captains, we used to have block captains way back.
Right, something of that nature. I mean, because I think that might help the people who are like, oh my God, another thing that, like, I just got the glass out of there. Yeah. I want to throw what in there?
Not everyone has glass out of there.
Oh, I know. The neighbors.
Yeah, we pulled glass, 2019, we pulled glass.
Yeah.
So,
But anyway, I'm just.
yeah, I mean, these are great ideas.
And that's not cost, I mean, that wouldn't cost you anything. So.
How about maybe we pivot to,
Yeah, that's where.
give the floor to Joel here and let him talk a little bit about,
Just want to see if Adam is on. It's not 2:30 yet. Nope, okay.
Well, I mean, I can go ahead and get
Yeah.
started from,
Yeah,
at
take
least
it
my
away.
perspective as the hauler, from the hauler perspective. I mean, we currently do this in Arlington County, and I'll let Adam cover a little bit more of how they handle it there. But the main benefit that I can see with this is definitely the savings on the disposal portion of what you are paying every month. Food waste would be acceptable in these bins with mixed within your yard waste. The facility that we bring the material to does accept it that way, and it actually helps for the composting process. So your food waste such as like food scraps, like vegetables, fruits, stuff like that can be thrown in your organics bin. What else? Pizza, I'm trying to think about.
Pizza,
Egg
yeah, meats, bones, no
Yeah.
oils.
A bunch of different things. So you pull that out of the waste stream, and you're saving on the $90 per tip fee for the trash portion versus, and then you're paying $41 instead. So you've got.
More than 50%.
Yeah. So you're
Do
saying,
you have any hard numbers that, that Arlington has saved by implementing a program like this?
I personally don't off the top of my head, but I can research that and find out and send it back to Ronnie. Or maybe.
I'm sure Adam, yeah, I'm sure Adam will have that. He won't have hard numbers, but he'll have.
I think it's part of the communication. If you can communicate to people, your fees are gonna go off, the comment that was made earlier. But the tipping fees are gonna go down. This is what it might be to you. This is the experience of our neighboring communities. It makes it a little more palatable, so to speak, that, yeah, I'm not just paying more for nothing, I'm paying more, that hopefully will bring the cost down, maybe neutralize some of that
So
cost. And
Arlington.
be better for the environment, right?
Arlington and City of Alexandria, their model is gonna be a little bit different, mainly because of the fact that they no longer, starting October of this year, they won't have any tipping fees. So Reworld, Alexandria is co-owned, and it's essentially, it's been paid off, if you will. So there are no tipping fees. So moving forward, they will always have that cost saving kind of baked into that budget. But we can definitely ask what numbers they currently are seeing today. I mean, their program's been in place for over a year now, so we can ask for that data.
And the tipping fee going down, that's assuming that more people are gonna compost, which we already know is probably gonna be slow.
It's gonna be slow.
So I think people need to know that, if you say, oh, the tipping fee is gonna go down, people are like, oh, okay, that's gonna be less money for us. But it's not gonna actually show up for maybe a year.
It's not gonna be immediate.
And I think people need to understand that, because I think people will be upset if they think the fee is going down, the tipping fee is going down. But it's so minuscule that no one's seeing that. So it's just something to be aware of. Again, just the transparency.
Sure.
I mean, as was mentioned before, too, the education is the most imperative part of this entire process, making sure that the residents know what can go in that bin. I mean, you leave a door tag or a little tag on my car, I'm gonna read it, and then you can even maybe tape it to the lid. So you know.
You will be this.
You can't remove it.
Yeah. So I mean, but whenever you're adding food waste into the cart, the most important thing is, having a mobile cart, having a lid on that, because it will get smelly, especially this time of year.
And that's my other question is
Yeah.
raccoons and rats.
So the mobile carts that are listed up there's a 13-gallon, a 35-gallon, and a 65-gallon. The 65-gallon is typically your trash cart. That's the same size.
Yeah.
A 35 is a little bit smaller. 13, I'm gonna be honest, I don't have much experience with that. We don't use them. But I understand the interest in why they're being tossed around in this. So speaking of carts, 65, same as your trash can, 35, if you have a little bit less it takes up a little bit less of a footprint. Then 13-gallon, the reason why I don't have experience with those is because the way our trucks work, they have those cart tippers on the back. The 65s and the 35s
fit with those cart tippers. And that's something that I'm most paying attention to because I want to ensure the safety of our employees out there. I don't want them lifting heavy bins. And if you add organics to a 65-gallon cart, it's going to get heavy. So I'm most interested in the 65 and 35 because they work with the cart tippers. I don't have to have a rotator cuff injury or anything like that. But regarding the 13-gallon carts, they would be lighter. The thing I want to keep in mind with the 13-gallon carts, though, is they take up a smaller footprint. That means there's less plastic there, so they are lighter. So on windy days, you might have a little bit of a bin blow around, basically bin tornado going around the city. So I just want to make sure that's out there as well. The benefit to a 35 or a 65 too is you can include you're supposed to include your yard waste in there. So you wouldn't have those yard waste bags sitting around. And especially on rainy days, you leave your yard waste bags sit out there. Those are paper, they just kind of disintegrate and then you have a mess. So combining both these streams into a cart service is definitely a benefit to us and I think the residents as well. So you have both, all of it contained in a plastic container with a lid. So you don't have odors getting out, you don't have pests, you don't have, yeah, basically those two things. But then it's also for the logistics of our crews for lifting up the material into the trucks.
Can you talk about the actual like footprint for the amount of space that the 13-gallon and the 65-gallon will actually hold? Like, is there much of like a size difference of space that they will take ground wise for townhome users?
I can get you the exact measurements. I don't know them off the top of my head, but I would say this is just spitballing here. I've seen a lot of trash cans. So about maybe I don't even know how to describe it. This section of the table would be the footprint of a 64-gallon cart. It probably sits up about this high, roughly. A 35, you might lose a couple. Yeah, it's kind of weird shape too.
Yeah.
Kind of like circle or oval shaped-ish. Yeah, so I mean, I would say, okay, a 13-gallon bin though is the size of your kitchen bag. Kitchen bag that you buy at the grocery store, that's a 13-gallon bag. So that's what would fit. That's one of your, take out a true kitchen bag once, that's what's gonna fit.
Yeah, I think so. The reason why the 13-gallon was introduced to this conversation was because we wanted to make sure that townhome users that don't realistically produce a lot of yard waste, but still want to participate in the program for food waste. So that's kind of how the 13-gallon was introduced. However, after speaking with Jordan, that they do not want to offer the 13-gallon, mainly because of the safety for their crews. But they're also, they don't take, based off of what he said, specific dimensions, but that the footprint of space for the 13-gallon and the 35-gallon, there isn't much of a difference. So regarding space, like in your, townhome backyard, yes, you will see a difference, but it's not going to be horrible, right? So the 35-gallon should be easily kind of interchangeable between single family and townhomes. Any questions for Joel before we switch over to Arlington?
Well, I guess I don't know if this is his question or not, but maybe this is an Arlington question. I've lived in Fairfax, Arlington, DC here, and I can't remember where this was, but we used to use paper trash bags for leaves so that they could be picked up and recycled with the leaves. And I recall going to some center and picking up the paper bags for that purpose. I don't know what.
Probably Arlington.
Maybe it's Arlington, yeah. So
That's Arlington.
Okay, so Falls Church does plastic bags, right?
No,
Does
it does brown.
We do brown
We
bags.
just don't give them out.
We have to buy them.
You have to purchase
And then
them.
we buy the stickers.
Can they be picked up by a truck
Yes.
and recycled as leaves?
Yes, so there's a whole bag.
They're not plastic.
No,
Okay.
there's no. plastic.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, sorry.
Is it possible, for townhomes to have a area designated for people to dump their, so you wouldn't have everybody having, no.
No, speaking for us.
Yeah.
There's no common space available for them.
Okay.
All right, we're switching over to Adam. Adam, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi,
Adam is
everyone.
Washington County, and take it away, Adam, whenever you're ready.
Sure. So, yeah, I will just go over we've had a yard waste program with a standard third green card since 2016, and then we just in 2021 added food scraps to that same card. So I'll just go over our organics program and yeah, participation rates and just sort of what we've seen with the rollout of this, starting with the, adding a third cart. So 2016 was before my time with the county, but some people who are around have told me one of the biggest challenges just with the third cart was teaching people to use it, even just with yard waste. It seems kind of intuitive, but just anytime you make a systemic change where you're asking people to do something different, you're just going to get a lot of questions. So, again, if there is a rollout of a third cart and moving away from the bag system. Again, people just have questions about, is it fully replacing it or is the old system still available? You will get pushback, I think, from people who are just tied to the old system and they don't like change and it works well for them. I think that, again, it seems easy, but adding a third cart is similar to any systemic change, and it's going to take several months, and there should be I think, a pretty robust outreach effort. So if you look at our participation rate in our organics program, there's sort of two different aspects I look at, and that's the food waste versus the true yard waste. So in terms of yard waste, and again, it's a much more mature program, but we really have not seen and don't see any going into the trash. That was not the case from what I understand in the early years. There was a learning curve. I wouldn't expect the same thing in Falls Church with, stuff going in the trash just because it's been, banned from the trash for a while. And so people are used to not putting in the trash can. So our participation rate for people who are generating yard waste is high 90s, close to 100%. It's going in that bin. Food scraps is another matter. So again, we rolled out the program allowing people to add food scraps to and commingle it with their yard waste in their existing green cart in 2021. We did a big educational push at the time and have done several other pretty significant campaigns utilizing any sort of communication medium you can think of. We've done streaming ads on TV, we've done social media, we've done print, we've done radio ads. I mean, we've tried really everything. We are still in the low to mid 20s in terms of people who are consistently putting food scraps into their organic bin. It seems that the biggest hurdle that we hear from people is what it's commonly referred to as the ick factor. There's just something inherently kind of icky about food scraps, especially when they get commingled and then kind of sit there. That's particularly true in the summer. So we have, again, tried to educate people on ways to lessen that. But we've kind of hit a ceiling that we've been trying to break through for years now. I will say it's not that much different from other similar jurisdictions nationwide. So Austin, Texas, I think started a very similar program to ours in 2012. And as of a few years ago, their participation rates are even lower. Evanston, Illinois has a pretty much identical program. Again, single organic bin where you can commingle things. They're stuck in the low 20s. So I don't know that any communities really cracked the code on how to get, really robust participation. That being said, and I'm sure this is, or again, I understand I joined late, so maybe it hasn't been covered, but I would say from an ease of implementation and a cost effectiveness standpoint, having a single commingled bin is probably the easiest way to go. There's obviously drawbacks. As a resident of the city who uses Compost Crew, I mean, they're much more of a kind of butler service, they bring you your bag, they, send those to you. And so you have this lined bin where, you're not going to have those things with a 35 or 65 gallon bin. But again, it is much easier to implement. It is significantly cheaper, based on our experience. So, yeah, I'll give that as the overview, and if there's open up to any questions, or I don't know if I'm gonna save those for the end.
Any questions for Adam?
Do people complain about having the extra space it takes? Like I'm thinking of a garage and now you have an extra bin in there. That would be one question. And the other would be when you talk about, food waste, that usually starts in the kitchen. And you don't keep a bin in your kitchen, right? So there's a process there, and how does that work?
Well, so what we did in Arlington, I'll take the second question first, is we recognizing that again, there is that issue of a bin in the kitchen. We purchased and then hand distributed to all of our 33,300 single family homes a 2-gallon kitchen top. We call it a caddy. It's a plastic 2-gallon bin. We did it for two reasons. One is to get at that problem, but two, it was really an educational thing of if someone has a tangible thing show up on their porch, they're more likely to be like, what is this? Why is it here? And we put educational materials in it. But we provided everyone with an internal bin so they could collect those food scraps, and take them out to their external bin and sort of get over that hurdle or give people a pathway to get over it. In terms of the space issue, that certainly does come up. We've particularly found it. I know when I joined you, you all were talking about townhome communities. We don't require people to have a third organic bin. So if someone says, I don't want it, we don't force them. We're not like, here, you're taking a bin. And we do have people say, I just don't have space for that third bin. I'd love to participate, but, I just can't accommodate it. So that is a challenge, for some people, again, just based on property size. What we have seen on the townhome front where that can be a challenge, is sometimes you just see neighbors, who will say, well, they know each other, and 2 or 3 townhomes will just say, we're all going to share one cart. And, it's one person's cart. And again, since there's no additional charge, it's, their cart, but they just leave it out between the townhomes, and 2 or 3 will all put their food scraps in it, and then that'll get collected. So we've seen, again, it's informal, but people working together to sort of solve some of those if they want to participate, and have neighbors who do too, but maybe don't have the space.
Any other questions for Adam or Joel? Thank you, Adam, for joining us.
Sure.
All right, so we are going to move on. So the yellow sticker program, this is essentially a method for residents, not only for the yard waste bags, for excess trash as well. It's a pay-as-you-throw concept back in 2004, 2005, when the first DEQ solid waste management plan was submitted to the state. So this was essentially kind of in lieu of, they wanted to implement a pay-as-you-throw back then, but this was essentially in lieu of, if you will. They're $1 a sticker. We've essentially collected $27,628 just in sales from yellow stickers. So I mean, this obviously is just for curbside residents for them to use for excess trash and or yard waste. We are expecting the use of the yard waste, again, low yard waste, that we're essentially seeing, we're expecting that to lessen. And then staff, we are essentially recommending that we maintain the yellow sticker program. Just because, with the yard waste, excess trash, it's going to happen, especially there are seasons of trash, you know? Around, you know, the fall time, you have more trash, you have Christmas, Thanksgiving, all of that. You know, in the spring and the summertime, everyone's vacationing, you know, we all have the seasons of trash. Oh, I think this is,
I'm gonna go ahead.
yes.
So, so to kind of, kind of add this discussion to what we talked about previously, and so like, I think what we talked about last time was kind of the core, if we kind of stuck with the core services, curbside collection fees, tipping fees, the compost subsidy, and then based on our last discussions, included, the costs of direct staff as well as kind of overhead administration. We added on top of that the incremental cost for the third bin we were talking about today. When we were talking about the total program costs that we would potentially roll into a fee, it's around $1.2 million. So we get your all's feedback on whether that collection of things still makes sense and the organics cart and all that, but just to kind of share what that looks like, that's what this is.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to Gabby, the points that you were making on the subsidy, sort of confusing the math here. So this would be year one would be the 51, but then the out years starting year 2, 3, et cetera, would be the 141, right?
So maybe the way I would kind of frame it that the group could kind of weigh in on, right?
Yeah.
So I think we were treating this at the beginning of like not taking away anything that's policy wise and program wise that the city's previously implemented. So the
Okay.
city currently is providing a subsidy for the folks that are electing to do compost crew.
Okay,
You all could make a recommendation that we don't want to do that anymore and take that cost out. That's why we've kind of set it up the way we have.
okay,
And we can frame it differently for sure.
okay. But the recommendation, if we stick with the currently applied subsidy, is this lines up with the city's values of reducing carbon and sending waste in a more reasonable disposal manner. So there would be this subsidy baked in going forward. That's if we went along with this math, that would be the recommendation that we make.
Correct. I think there's maybe 3 variants. One could be, I'm gonna keep the current subsidy.
Right.
Second one is we're gonna implement the third bin. And so maybe we wouldn't show a subsidy up here. We would show the full $141,000 cost that we're talking about today. Or we could do nothing, take the subsidy out, not do composting at all, right? That could be a recommendation that you all make. We just don't want to add the cost of any of it. And we would,
If you go back, I'm sorry, to the
Sorry, we're just on.
to the summary. Okay, but this does add an organics bin, but includes an ongoing subsidy because it's only 51, not 140.
The 90s here, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the 90s here, yeah.
It was just broken out differently. Okay.
so we can frame it differently. I think based on the discussion today, we would, right? If you all wanted to move forward with the organics cart implementation,
Mhm.
but that's how we rolled it up,
Okay,
building off the kind of.
all right, 15 different numbers.
No, we
Yep.
talked about a whole bunch of numbers.
Yeah, that's good.
So I have a general question about pay as you throw and this supplemental yellow sticker, because I've heard people, not just in written meetings, but other meetings I've attended, complain that that's they view that as a nuisance process. They have to go to places they don't usually go to. They have to pay a minimal amount of fee, but they still have to, drive down to the courthouse or go to, I guess it's a Giant or someplace, and they view this as kind of a nuisance. And the cost is really low. I mean, $1, if you're talking about a 65-gallon trash can versus a 35-gallon trash can, I was reading on the website, the bin is 30 gallons, right? So you can get a $35-gallon trash can and $1 more, another 30 gallons. And you can do that every week, which it wouldn't be good for sanitation necessarily, and it shouldn't be the objective. So I'm wondering if you've given any consideration to try, and it seems like if you're going to have a composting bin, you can reduce the amount of stuff that has to get into plastic bags, right, or separate bags. That maybe increasing value of that, or making the stickers more easily attainable, that there might be some other things that you can do to make that program shrink. It seems the goal should be to make that program shrink. Or if it doesn't shrink, raise the costs because it seems like a pretty cheap way to get rid of your trash, $1 per 30 gallon bag. I mean, that seems like it runs contrary to what you want of people using the bins and reducing the bags.
No, I agree with you 100%.
But the $1 thing is, it's all compostable stuff, so it's not, I mean, it's not reducing, it's reducing putting stuff in your trash can that goes then to the dump, but it's, I mean, it's already doing what it's supposed to be doing, so.
So what do you do if you have extra trash that's
You
not?
buy another
compostable?
sticker also for $1 and you put out your extra.
Actually, you mean trash bags,
Yeah,
like garbage?
Yeah,
I've never seen that.
yeah, well, we have a
I just see
35
people
gallon.
just overpiling. Okay,
Yeah.
I just see people overpiling their 64.
I'm sure that would.
They pick it up.
Or you buy a sticker and,
Yeah.
So per city code, your lid is actually supposed to be shut. So technically, no one is supposed to be having overflowing trash bins, but you know, it does happen. But the main purpose, for, in my eyes, because I think once we implement this third bin, if that's what, you know, this task force is going to recommend, that the aspect of yard waste on just every day, you know, no huge storms, it's not fall, you know, things of that nature. I don't think residents will need to go and purchase many bags and tags. However, coming from a refuse aspect of it, that is my main focal point. Now, implementing this third bin, our hope is to obviously deter a lot of the waste from one stream to the next, right? So take it out of refuse, bring it over to composting. But again, as we mentioned earlier, that this is going to be a slow ramp up of that. So in the meantime, until we get everyone on board, we start making those small incremental behavior changes, it's going to take time. So what do we do in the meantime? Or what do we do for residents that, you know, currently have multiple children in diapers? You know, they're not in diapers forever, but in that small amount of time, they're gonna have to come up with a way to dispose of such items. You know, you have a huge party. So especially if we were to go the route of variable rate, you know, say I'm a homeowner and I decide, okay, well, I want to pay the $200 rate because I know that, you know, the yellow sticker program is no longer in place. I'm just gonna throw whatever I want to throw out on the curb because there's no consequences. There's no reason for a resident to choose a 35-gallon bin with the true intention of they're going to be producing 35 gallons worth of refuse a week if we remove this program. And as long as I've worked here, which is over 10 years, before then, you know, the solid waste has always been, you know, like the motto, you know, theory, is always been, you know, think before you throw. So, you know, if we're urging residents to think before we throw, we're urging residents to do the right thing and divert from one stream to the next stream, it just doesn't make sense to get rid of that. Now, on your other point of making the stickers more easily accessible. So we have talked with Giant. I've spoken directly with their store general manager. I've also stopped into Whole Foods. So we are working with those partners, but it takes a little bit of time because they're large corporations. They need to work with their legal offices and corporate offices and things of that nature. So those take a little bit of time. So we are in the works. We have made contact with both of those retailers. And then we're also looking into possibly even selling brown craft bags at the treasurer's office to kind of make it that one-stop shop to kind of replace what we lost at Brown's, where you were able to pick up your brown bags and the stickers. So we're still looking into that. It is something that, you know, we could most definitely do and sell them. So when you come to the treasurer's office, you buy everything at once and it's a one-stop shop and you're done. So we are looking into those types of things. It's just, it takes a little bit longer to implement.
But I'm wondering, like even just buying something on the internet, having you mail it. And, you know, mail 10 stickers to somebody.
Currently that is an option. So if you go to the treasurer's office website, that is an option that, you know, that you can order and pay for them online and they will mail them to you.
Hey, Lonnie.
I didn't.
Yes.
I just wanted.
It's Jody. I just wanted to tell you a little anecdotal information. Last year, between January 1 and July 9, 2024, at the treasurer's office, we sold 450 yellow trash stickers. This year, same period, we've sold 5,115. So I think the closing of Browns, you know, people don't know where else to get the stickers, so they're coming into us. I think that's had a big impact. I just wanted to give you that info.
Yep.
Giant doesn't sell?
Giant does sell them. So
Okay.
Giant sells.
Giant
the-
does, yeah.
And the bags, but
I thought
everybody has just been used to, you know, you don't need to go into the grocery store. Nobody wants to go into the grocery store. So again, I am looking into those avenues, but it will take us a little bit of time to work with big corporate offices.
So zooming out and just kind of looking at this, what I like that we heard from Adam in Arlington is that they have high 90s, he said almost 100% participation with an organic bin focused on yard waste. I really like something where it's very cost effective because all the money is, people are getting value out of that. So I like, and again, it's too bad that, you know, we're hearing that around the country, people seem to be stuck in the, you know, low to mid 20s on composting. But getting almost 100% of people at least using that organic bin and taking some annoyance out of all of our lives, having to go get more stickers and bags, that's a value, you know?
It sounds like Arlington has a almost totally voluntary program, though. That's on this, it sounds like it. Is that?
Yeah, so it is an opt-in program if you want the actual physical card. However, every resident is paying for that service.
Right, so like the caddies or the carts, and that's, you have to say, I want that before that gets delivered to your house.
I was under the assumption, and maybe I misheard, that Adam has said that 90% of people are participating in the yard waste, but 20% are doing the actual food waste.
Also putting in food scraps.
Right, and I go with you, the it factor. I do the compost crew, and they give us a plastic bag, and I have the biggest one, and mine is always full because I cook for a living, so I take the yard or the food scraps from where I work, and then I have my own food scraps. So mine is, and I'm telling you, when they, like today, it's ick at the bottom, and I have a plastic bag to protect, and I have, now I put in, cardboard to soak up a little bit, but it's still like, so if you're having a 65-gallon really ick, like, and you have no bag.
Well,
it's going to
yeah.
be- And I'm just, it doesn't bother me, I deal with it all the time, but I have a feeling it's gonna be a really, really hard sell for a majority of people, and I'm just worried about that. It's,
Yeah, no, I
So
100%.
I'm happy to add some color to what we've seen on that, because that is, and I will say that's, I've always on this, you know, and having done our curbside, and now we're doing a, you know, street can pilot for food scraps, and having done yard waste, there's no one solution that's going to fit everyone's situation. And so I agree, like, compost crew with the line bags and smaller can just for food scraps is better if you don't generate a lot of yard waste. I think the bigger cans work better if you regularly are generating, you know, yard waste. And they also work fine. Again, there's a seasonality to it, of course. So in the winter, it's not, I mean, things just kind of go in there and freeze, even with the big cans, and so you don't really get that gross factor. But yeah, in summer, if you are not, I mean, if you're doing other, and the irony is, it's like if you're doing other sustainable behaviors like grass cycling, and you're not really generating a whole lot of yard waste, and you're just putting food scraps in there, I mean, even those bags, again, they're degradable bags. They're supposed to break down, and so, and those big carts are harder to clean. So again, there's not going to be a perfect solution, and there are people in Arlington who, even though, again, it's part of our standard offering, they still subscribe to Compost Crew for that reason. So again, there's not a magic bullet here. It's just weighing what's going to work best for the most amount of people, and obviously budgetary concerns come in as well.
I have a feeling people who are single-family homeowners will have less problem with this than townhome, smaller, space-wise, they don't have the yard waste that, you know.
And so I'm wondering if there's gonna be a difference in percentages of people who will then compost, because it's just gonna be pretty much food waste, which is gonna be really ick. And I don't know how we get around that. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not trying to be difficult, just trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and you're, it's definitely the egg factor, as Adam said. Joel, coming from a like reporting aspect I mean, there's obviously no way to essentially estimate how much is food waste and how much is actually yard waste when it's taken to the same facility.
Not really, because it's all intertwined. It's
Yeah.
not broken out.
Okay.
So we've got a little bit of data on that. So in Arlington, we do hand waste audits every quarter. So we actually collect from a sampling of people, and we sort their trash, recycling carts, and organics carts by hand. And so when we look, the organics cart, and this is done by weight. So again, take it again with a grain of salt, just on precision, because food waste is much heavier than if people put leaves or something else in there. But by weight, we're seeing that food waste is 10 to 15% maybe. Yeah, so again, and that's obviously impacted by the number of people who are participating in the food scraps program being much lower than the yard waste. But again, we do try and segregate that, and again, it fluctuates. Obviously by season, you get a little bit heavier on the food scraps in the winter when you get less yard waste. But yeah, that's kind of where it sits. So we've got a little bit of data on it, but I would say sort of it's got some wiggle room on each end, but that's the best number I can give you.
It's okay, let's pivot. So we're trying kind of, in the interest of time here. We can kind of loop back, but I wanna talk about the fee follow-up discussion from last time. So, so we've got Sally here, with us, but I'll take a crack at talking through things, and then Sally and I are happy to try and answer questions from folks. And so, as we kind of talked about, let's see. So, kind of the legal basis for charging a fee, right? And we're talking about paying a fee to receive a service. And so the fee needs to be based on the cost to provide that service. It's just kind of a general underlying principle. And so, as we've talked through kind of how to look at different potential fee models, a couple of the legal terms that Sally and the outside counsel shared with me are, first, it needs to be rationally related to the purpose of the program. And Lonnie and I talked a little bit about this earlier. Like, oh, what does that mean, right? And it's, I lost on my notes here, right? So, so it needs to be kind of tied to the service that you're providing, right? And so there was a legal case of Estes Funeral Home versus Wise County back in 2003 here in the state of Virginia. And they were charging different fees to different businesses based on the business type, right? And the funeral home said, hey, that's not fair. It doesn't have to, the type of business I am doesn't have anything to do with the volume of trash that I'm producing. And so, so the court ultimately decided that ordinance violated the equal protection clause, and which basically prohibits the state from discriminating based on kind of what they've determined to be irrelevant differences. And so, so that was kind of one element of it. And then the other one we've talked about is, the difference in the fees that you set up needs to be fairly debatable, right? And so, there needs to be a reasonable basis behind it, the justification you use, and doesn't mean everybody's got to agree on it, but it has to be something that's like, okay, it's reasonably based on kind of the costs incurred. So as we thought through kind of the different fee models that we kind of spoke about kind of at our last session, a couple of them, are easy, right? Like, you have kind of a flat fee for everybody, or the fixed variable cost model for different bin sizes in particular, kind of, the rationally related, the fairly debatable kind of, justification for the fees. The incentivized model that we talked about having a bigger fee difference between the 35 and 65 gallon bins. I think you can get there, right? From a kind of having a rational basis. We're trying to drive behavior and reduce tipping costs and the like. And then, we talked about property classifications and whether a townhome or could you charge a different amount to a townhome versus a single family home? And you could probably get there. I think we talked about we probably need some additional analysis to be able to do that. Runs into some of the challenges I think we talked about last time. You could have a really expensive big townhome and a really small lesser valued single family home. Does that really accomplish what you're looking for? And is it, based in the kind of principles here? Where we thought, some of the ideas I think that we talked about last time where we thought had justification challenges for these principles were, basing the fee on assessed value, right? And even kind of property size per square, like the number of square feet, those, I think, from artists, and we can talk about it more here as a group, but we kind of felt like those weren't necessarily rationally related to the amount of trash being generated and the costs incurred on by a particular customer. And so, I tried talking this through with Lonnie yesterday. I'm not, we ended up in a good place, but it took a little time and I'm not sure. So I'm happy to discuss further, answer questions. We got Sally here who can kind of chime in and offer her perspective.
Unfortunately, this wasn't in my schedule today and I do have to leave, but if you have any questions, if you can write them down, and certainly I can help.
Sure.
I think you have a good handle on it though, and that's correct right there. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So thoughts and reactions.
So I got a reaction. It sounds like we've got a lot of leeway. I mean, you can certainly make a case that smaller homes generate less trash than bigger homes. I mean, it seems like a rational argument, right? 1,200 square foot home generate less than 5,000 square foot home. I mean, that's, and even none of these are going to be precise. I mean, you can give someone a 65 gallon bin, someone else a 35 gallon bin. They can fill their 35 gallon bin to the top. They can put one 30 gallon bag in their 65 gallon bin. They're going to, how do you justify that? You're not weighing everybody's individual trash. So you're never going to have a situation where you have a precise pound for pound charges for trash, right? So either a generic service where everybody pays a generic rate, or something that is ration related. And it seems like size of your house, size of your building, would be a rational basis on which to do this, and would get to the issue maybe better than assessed value, because we talked about that there are, if we look at a type of house or assessed value of house, might not reflect the situation as well as just the size. The smaller houses probably generate less trash. It seems like this gives us a lot of flexibility rather than restricting us. It seems like it gives us a lot of flexibility. The lawyer's job is to defend whatever you propose, right? As long as you have a good rational basis for it, not to make courts make a judgment. My wife's an attorney. It's the reason people hate attorneys. When you go through this, or I ask a legal principal, so what's the right answer? And her answer is always, well, which one are you? Because the job of the attorney is advocacy, right? So I think if we come up with a reasonable approach, and to me, size of the house is a pretty reasonable approach. Size of that makes some, just doesn't have to be dramatic, but 90% of the cost for a house under 1,500 square feet, maybe a phased rate above, based on some reasonable level, some reasonable cutoff time, and you have to look at the values to make a judgment about what that would be. Can't be totally arbitrary. But where are most of your townhouses and how small are they? And I think you could do this. I guess so. That's the way I would do this. This could be done.
But if I understand correctly, the lawyer is saying that property size is not a rationally related. I hear you, and it logically makes sense, but on the list there, property size is something that city legal staff would recommend against, right?
So when we talked about it Sally and I had talked with some outside counsel about it earlier this week, and part of the discussion went down, well, the size of your space doesn't necessarily equate to kind of the number of people
True.
living in the house, which is what generates the waste. And so, they talked about like, well, okay, like if you could get to an approach where you had like bedroom count, like a bedroom count ties maybe closer to the number of occupants, and you could maybe potentially build something along those lines. Part of the challenge, and so I understand, so like hearing you talk about it, Fred, with the size of the house, I'm like, okay, like I get my head around it. I think as a city admin, like, responsible for the city administration of the program, like I get the chills.
Okay.
When you think about like, okay, now I need to get an accurate square footage number of every property in the city, and well, does Lonnie's basement count? Does the, like, somebody did an addition, did we get the data to update the,
ADUs.
it becomes a little bit administratively challenging. I'm not gonna say it's not solvable, but it's like assessed value, like we've got a real estate tax system that built up and has that data, and it's a sound kind of piece of information that we use. And so it's not that I don't want to say it can't be done. It's just, it's a big hurdle for me to get my head around just from an administration and execution standpoint.
Versus something binary, which the top ones, the rationally related 3 bullets are like, you have a bin that's this or this, you have a townhouse or this, you have a,
So we can, so
The second one does it go into townhouse versus single family?
property classifications could be, that's the one I'm looking at.
Okay.
Because again, it's like, you don't have to ask any other questions, right? It's just like single family times. Right?
We have at least the one case I found in Prince William where that's what they use. They use mobile homes,
Sure.
townhomes,
Sure.
single family homes. So
Right.
there is at least one precedent for that approach.
And we did look at their code, right, because they've had to kind of challenge, look through some, weigh some of these previous cases and things like that.
Yeah.
we looked at.
Well, I think also part of the problem is that we don't have the time to actually look at the justification challenges, the assessed value, property size, square foot. We don't have time to do that. And that I don't think is, I have a problem. I think we should have more.
Well, as I mentioned, I think in a previous session, I think that I would hate for us to be trapped in this false, like, we have to hurry up and do it. I mean, it's been 20 years, right? So issue's been coming up for more. So it would be, we could always recommend just do a straight fee, divide by 3,000. That's your fee for year 1. And then in year 2, you do something that requires some more nuance or complexity, or do you know what I'm saying? Because I would just.
I agree, but will people want to do that? Once
Yeah,
once
I
it's
don't know.
established,
Yeah, that's.
are you gonna want to shake it all
Want
up?
to then change it.
And I don't think
That's a fair
the
point.
government's gonna want to do that.
Yep. That's a
And
fair point.
so that's my fear is that we set
Yeah.
precedent and they say, okay, that's what we're doing.
Yep.
And we don't ever readdress it because it's been, okay,
Right.
you got it. And I think, it's been 20 years, but it's only been brought to the public eye in the past 4 months.
Yeah.
And that I don't think is, and it to me, and I've talked to a bunch of neighbors and some friends, and they said, why can't we just put it on the ballot and let every homeowner, every person in the city of Falls Church decide how we want to handle this? And I thought, I don't know, can we do that? I mean, because they said, it sounds like the government has made their decision and now we're just kind of trying to figure out how we charge people.
Mhm.
And that it doesn't seem very democratic, is what this person told me. This is a good friend of mine. And then another person said that they have less incentive to recycle if you're asking people to pay for it, which broke my heart because we are paying, and we're paying for our future generations. And so for that person to say, well, why do I, if I'm paying for my trash and then I'm gonna have to pay for everything else in addition to what's gonna make me wanna even start to divide and put the compost there, and I'm just gonna keep it in there. I'm paying for it. And that, like I said, it broke my heart and I was just like, well,
Not sure I follow. I appreciate the person's comment. I'm not sure I follow the logic on it, but I get it. People be frustrated by it.
right, yeah, so I just throw those 2 comments out because I feel like this was a good time to bring this up, but
Sure.
I don't know.
Well, I think everybody's paying for trash right now.
Right.
You're,
Right, but
that
they're gonna
person
pay
you talked to
more.
is paying,
They're gonna
Right.
pay more, and then they're gonna have to
Right.
take out the garbage, the compost, and then take out
but
the.
that would be voluntary, so
Yeah,
not
right.
necessarily would they have to do that if they didn't want to do that. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, they were paying, and I'm paying,
Yeah.
as a
Okay.
resident for their trash as well.
Yeah.
As well as my own trash.
Yeah.
So I don't quite get that argument that, but I do see, I mean, in terms of the fee, to me, the two issues are why would we do anything other than a flat fee? I see two reasons we might do something other than a flat fee. If we were doing a fee, just assume we're doing a fee, or the city, not our call, if the city council wants to do a fee. The two reasons we might not want to do a flat fee is the easiest, and in some sense, it's the fairest. Everybody pays for what they get. Everybody pays the same price for a ham sandwich if they get a ham sandwich.
but it won't work out. Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's a flat fee.
Yeah.
It's everybody pays for the same service, the same
Yeah.
rate. That's probably the easiest thing to do. So why would we do something different than that? So to me, there's two reasons. One is to incentivize behavior change, which we talked about, incentivizing people putting out less trash and therefore incurring less fees, something. And the other is to reduce the out-of-pocket costs on the people that have the highest out-of-pocket expenses, which is going to be the people with the least expensive houses, because they're not going to get as much of a benefit of the tax rate reduction as the people who have larger, more expensive houses. I mean, last time we met, there was somebody who wrote a letter about, how these fees are going to be outrageous, et cetera. I looked up the value of their house. It's pretty easy to find. 65 cents a week. That's what they're going to be paying for their trash removal. It's not bad. And if they realize that, they might not be quite so upset about it. But there are people with the least expensive houses who are going to have to write, $200 a year additional checks to what they currently pay in taxes. So it seems like if we're going to do that, we should look at whether or not we can do those two things. One, change behavior and reduce the trash load and reduce the expense of the whole program. Or B, look at how we can create less of a burden on the people who have the least expensive houses that are going to have to write the biggest out-of-pocket checks.
Question for you. Could we do a combo both? Could we charge a flat rate and then and I'm thinking about in the school system, like if you can't afford lunches, there are these programs to help you pay for your lunch. Could we is there a possibility of offering the people who are going to be most, because again, that smaller, if I recall correctly, that the people have the least valued houses is a fairly small percentage, 6, 8, 10, whatever it was, I can't remember, it was way back. Could we offer them
Miscellaneous update.
something of an incentive where they could apply to pay less? I don't know, and that's.
So
And I think you could have a program where nobody has to pay more than $5 a week for their, more for their trash. That would strike me as a number that most people could say, I can live with that, And right now we have at the bottom of this, the last 124 houses, they have to pay, $6.39 a week, right? And it's only 180 houses in those lower categories. So it seems like we could find a way to address these lower category rates that would reduce their out-of-pocket expenses and put everybody sort of on okay, well, we're all paying a fee, but no one's having to pay more than X. It just seems like there might be a way to construct that.
So,
It's good.
so hold that thought, right? So there's kind of two updates on fees. One of them's on the chart on the page here and one's not, right? So we've talked about senior relief before, right? And there's Virginia code that, basically says for senior or disabled folks that are, fall under certain income thresholds, you can provide relief. There are 44 property owners in the city that claim this tax relief today. 29 of those are solid waste customers. So it's around like 1% of folks. And so I did simple math. If there's 29 customers and the fee is $385, like we were looking at like $10,000 or $12,000 a year is what that program would cost the city to handle that. And we can talk about whether it comes out of this program or the city council just allocates separate money. It's not a huge number. what Sally shared with me earlier today is, through the our Housing and Human Services Office and the Human Services Advisory Council, the city can grant funds to assist residents with trash fees in the same manner as it provides funds to assist in things like rent relief. And pay people, or, we were able to provide folks utility bill assistance and some of those kinds of things. It's not a huge number of people, right? And so,
But if those people are asking for it, it's there,
That's great.
that makes me feel
Yeah.
better.
yeah, so I think so we can look into that, see if there's a way to kind of bridge the gap between not just seniors and disabled folks, but maybe some other folks that could be, supported through that program.
I mean, personally, just saying, I would feel a lot better knowing that not a ton of people, but people who need help, you get some help. I think that would be great. And then I think you're sort of talking about if the equity situation is largely resolved by being able to help people as they need it. Then you're just saying like, okay, we could do a flat fee, or we could also try an incentive and try to, an incentive with a larger, smaller bin, something like that, to try to drive some more behavior changes. Right. And then I think it comes down to one of those two options.
With that, so we've laid out a couple and, and we've covered these before, but just so to refresh everybody's memory, what it looks like with the costs and things we've talked about, assuming we want to do the third bin composting program. It's around $385 per customer. And then you can see, what the fees would be kind of for the different property value, or the net impact would be for different property values for that. When we talked about kind of just splitting it up, fixed and variable costs, like being that your tipping fees are the only variable cost, everything else is fixed. It drops the cost for folks with the smaller bin a little bit, right? And then if we wanted to do a more dramatic kind of incentivized rate, I think we talked about it, we made this difference 150. I think we've got to think about the justification of that a little bit more, from a legal standpoint, but you can see kind of where that comes out. Well, yeah, that was it. So, what thoughts and reactions, and we're honing in on this here.
So, I think with your first variable, flat fee, clear. The first variable cost, that doesn't strike me as dramatically different, but it still might be somebody, someone to take a second look at their behavior. The third one, I talked to the last time about, we have a lot of smart people here, right? And they will gain any system that you put in place. And if you had $256 for a 35-gallon bin, you could buy another 52 bags for $52. That's $308. Why would you ever get a 65-gallon bin? You can get rid of your trash in a 35-gallon bin and save, $100 a year. And so what do you say, less trash? No, it's the same amount of trash. So I don't know that you can assume that it will correlate. And I do have a concern that people, and also let's just say 82% of the property now want to return those 65-gallon bins. You've got to buy 32-gallon bins for 82% of the population to replace those other ones. What do you do with the old ones? How do you stock them? What do you maintain them? I mean, it just seems to me that if you do too radical a change, it's hard to predict what the reaction is going to be. And that reaction might cost you more than the benefit that you get.
I think you're correct. I agree. And I think the more rather than I would worry less about the purchase of more bins, right? I don't think it'll be that, I'm worried less about that cost of buying the bins, but the whole model is predicated on estimating how many people are going to take each bin, right? And it's like 20% or something, I think was what we estimated would take the 35-gallon bin. If 50% of the people take the 35-gallon bin, your math changes in a way that like won't save everybody as much money. It gets complicated trying to get
And
that.
total fixed cost doesn't necessarily change.
Correct.
Which then you can't offer them the benefit that you promised to offer them because it has to be spread over.
So that's where there's more for the sticker reason you said, for the predicting the kind of take rate reason, you know, that there's more uncertainty with this approach than the less dramatic difference.
So if you go back to the less dramatic difference, I think that one actually sounds interesting, and I'm thinking about it too from a legal justification standpoint. That would be very easy to legally justify. You would just say, look, this is what it costs. It costs a little less for the 35-gallon bin, and that's how much you pay. And this is what it costs for and I mean, it's just clean. There's no arguing about it. So it's interesting because I was initially leaning towards incentivized, thinking like, oh, we could drive some behavior change, et cetera. But to your point, and people gaming systems, et cetera, I don't think this is going to make people try. I don't personally think people are going to try to bother to game the system. Maybe you'd have a few. It just doesn't seem like it's not even $1 a week.
It's not so much that you would say,
It's not-
oh, yeah.
Right. It's not so much that you're like,
Because you have to change, right?
and it's kind of annoying to like call and do whatever. And you're just like, okay, whatever, it's fine. It's $1.
Lonnie loves people to call for the record, so.
Thing for the individual having to make the call, right? Like, oh, I have to pick up the phone and do a thing, right? Like, so anyway, I'm saying that this one is actually looking better to me personally now.
Gabby, what do you think?
I just have a question.
Huh?
Are we out there? I'm all this
Yeah.
crazy. And I don't quite understand what I'm talking about. But anyway, so the fee per so you look at the total cost, you see the fee per customer for, let's just say the $35 gallon bill is $3.55. That's a flat fee for everybody if we don't take the real estate tax reduction into it. Correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Why don't we just do that? So everybody pays that amount.
The slide above the flat fee,
That's the flat. fee.
$3.85 would just be, there you go.
Okay,
That's your-
that's just the flat fee. No, but you're still getting a real estate tax reduction in it. I'm saying nobody gets real estate tax. I guess you can, okay, see, like I said, I'm crazy. But, because again, when you look at that, the more expensive homes are gonna get money back. And the less expensive homes are gonna pay more. So I'm wondering, how do we make it? Maybe I'm a socialist, I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how do we make it so everybody's paying the same thing regardless of what type of home.
We can't.
Can't do that.
So I think the principle that we're talking about is that would be the case. But the tax reduction is being spread across all the property in the city, you know, including the folks in the businesses and the
Yeah.
apartment buildings and everything that aren't getting solid waste services. And so, but I think one of the expectations that at least kind of I understood kind of with what we were trying to do is this whole thing is intended to be revenue neutral or, you know, cost neutral for the city overall, right?
Yeah.
So if we're gonna add a fee to certain people, like the city shouldn't collect that money some other place. We should give it back. And so that's kind of what's been set up here. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. I was just trying to figure out why we're tying the real estate tax reduction into solid waste.
Just because it's currently paying for it. So it's just, we're just doing this fee structure and then we're switching to a different one. And then I think like we were discussing, if we can offer senior relief and potentially some other assistance, then that feels better to me personally. Yeah.
So I look back at your chart from last week, at our last meeting, whatever that was, 2 weeks ago, about, you know, how many people have the 35 gallon versus the 60 gallon, you know, 65 gallon. And if people don't, let's assume people don't change their behavior, okay, with the incentive system, which we called fixed variable cost fee scenario, but not the incentivized one, but fixed variable cost. So there are about as many people in the lowest value range that use 35 and 65.
Yeah.
There are about as many in the second lowest And once you get into the higher value houses, 750 to a million, 2 million, it's 10 times as many, and then 20 times as many have the larger cart. So that will tend to make the higher income, bigger house people pay more if they don't change their behavior and they just keep the carts they have. And you were to establish a fee structure like this, you would begin to, you'd have some of that result of less impact on the lower priced homes, just based on what they currently have and how they currently use their trash.
That's really good analysis. And then you're less concerned about the fixed variable scenario because it doesn't have the gaming of the system.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so we're a little over time, and I know we've got, folks have places to be. Mary Catherine, did you have, real quick, did you have any kind of communications updates for everybody?
I think that for those that read the news press this last week, it was a nice way to distribute information.
Thank you.
To, all of our neighbors in the city. There was also an accompanying article, Arlington Now wrote about it. We've continued digital media on the website, social media, and it's running the Falls Church Public Schools morning announcements the last 2 weeks. We had a meeting with their head of comms this week about future communications about this as well, communicating what will roll out eventually. And there's great commitment there for that. Yard signs will go out and up at the farmer's market this weekend. So we're continuing those.
Oops. All right. So I think I have an understanding kind of y'all's feedback, like we're not cementing anything, but we'll try and frame up a good discussion for the 21st. Kind of land on the principles of this. If you all have questions in the meantime, want to talk more, please reach out to Ronnie or me or kind of anybody else. Joel, thanks for being here today. Adam, Arlington, thanks for joining us. Councilmember Downs, thank you for being here. And we'll see you all on the 21st.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your help and participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
What I wrote.
Like the voice of God.